Welcome to another episode of Thinking Through Making. This time we have on Phil Bradley, who is a basket maker from Cumbria. I first met Phil when I stayed in his holiday let, which is beautiful, and I always find him a really interesting maker and basket maker as well. And so I asked him to come on for this episode, and we talked about lots of things, so I hope you enjoy it. So hi Phil, welcome to the podcast. Do you want to just start off by telling us a bit about yourself and your background and how you got started with woodwork and basket making?
Well, thanks for having me along. I think this is the first podcast I've ever partaken in, so I'm honoured to be asked to be part of yours, Emma. Well, my name's Phil Bradley. I'm a basket maker. Keep it simple. I'm a basket maker and a willow grower, and I'm based in West Cumbria in the UK. Started basket making. I was having a little think today. I think I made my first basket in the last millennium, 1992, 1993 is kind of when I started. And I went at it pretty hard early on, really. Although it was part-time for the first few years, it really got under my skin, basket making and the whole process. And I survived doing it for part-time for 7 years. And then come the millennium year, just funny things to people, millenniums. And I decided to pack my real job in and kind of went full-time as a basket maker year 2000. So it's been my full-time and kind of the only income for the last 24, that's an easy sum in 24 years full-time, 30 years, kind of a few years before that. Yeah.
So how did you learn how to do basket making?
I learned, I was very lucky. I used to work in ancient woodland management, the conservation work. I've always worked with trees and wood, but perhaps in a more kind of slightly academic way back then. And I moved to Cumbria with my forestry work. I was just kind of lucky, really. A lot of the people I met here, it's kind of quite a traditional county, Cumbria. And 30 years ago, there were still people making a living in the woods. It was like something out of a Thomas Hardy novel, really. It's these kind of woodlanders, Owen Jones, the basket maker, and lovely old Bill Hogarth, the coppice merchant, and Bill Lloyd still making and selling charcoal. And I kind of moved and was rubbing shoulders with these guys on a weekly basis. And it wasn't long before I realised I wanted to be them. And kind of their work and their job just seemed to be so much more tuned into where I wanted to be. So I was lucky to meet those people, just caught the end of that generation, really. And they were kind enough hearted people to take a young whippersnapper like me under their wing and show me stuff. And the more they showed you, the more you kind of wanted to learn, and the more it gets under your skin. And a little bit like hard drugs, really. I would have been in my late 20s then. And just sort of a different way of being, moving down here. And so it was something I've read about, largely through Tom Hardy, really. And I just came to the conclusion back then that I'd been born 100 years too late. All of that stuff was probably long gone and a bit historic. And I moved to Cumbria and so just caught the tail end of it, really.
So
I kind of learned off those guys.
How did you end up meeting those people?
Well, through work, really. I was rookie woodlands officer, kind of advising people on tree planting and woodland management. So you kind of get sent on courses, and in the same sort of conference hall, there'd be kind of me there, but then practitioners as well. So at coffee break, you'd just be talking to people and say, "Well, what do you do?" And they'd say these amazing things. You say, "Really? Can I come and see you?" And they'd say, "Yeah, come on." And so it was just chance meeting. It never planned becoming a basket maker. It was just, kind of happenstance. Yeah.
That's really cool. So, do you have any of your baskets to hand that you could show us and tell us a little bit about them?
I do, yeah. Yes, let's grab some. I've got some I've been making this week, actually, fresh off the box.
I have one too.
Fresh off the box baskets. So, oh, you've got one there. Yeah, snap. Let's play basket snap. Yeah, so I make, what do I make? I make a lot of utilitarian stuff. So I'm kind of making baskets that I hope people are going to be using rather than hanging on the wall as ornaments. So I make a lot of, it's not great handles yet, so this one's freshly made today. I make a lot of log baskets and shopping baskets and garden trucks and shoppers. Some of my baskets are based on very traditional baskets. This one, if you can see, it's got a slatted base. This one will have been historically made as an apple picking basket. So it would have been over one arm and filled with fruit, and all the debris, the little bits, stalks and the leaves would have fallen through the base. But then, you know, it still makes a very useful kind of shopping basket. You can change the base, put a solid one in, do laundry baskets and cradles and coffins. Yeah, cradles and coffins and everything you might want in between those two eventualities. It should be my strap line, really.
Isn't it?
Heat mats, for the table. It'll take a hot casserole dish or, yeah. So a whole manner of things, really. What else have I got here? Little fruit bowls and baskets. I do a bit of work with cleft oak as well. Cleft oak benches and chairs and bits of furniture. Spoons and spatulas, kitchen area. So yeah, it's kind of utilitarian stuff for people, everyday things, that people are going to handle and use, and they should be beautiful. Even though they're fairly mundane items, then why not have a spatula that's a sculpture as well?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm about, really. So hand making things for people to use. It's nothing particularly new in what I do. I think I just dip into this rich vein of traditional making, using local material to make nice things that kind of put a smile on people's faces, really.
Yeah, oh, and they definitely do. This is my pride and joy.
Yeah, and a very traditional basket, it's a little garden shrub, really. It doesn't have a flat bottom, so wherever you put them, whether it's in the garden or in the house, they tend to sit nicely. So yeah, we've got a couple, so you use them all the time in the garden, mainly for us, picking the rhubarb and putting the peas in and the broad beans and then bringing them into shell, and then it hangs in the kitchen. Most gets used daily, not much use as a shopping basket these days, but hopefully these baskets still find a use, whether it's for you and your wool, or
the wool.
Cat in. Yeah.
I put the wool in it in the winter, and then in the summer it migrates to the garden. Yeah,
well, that's great, and it always puts some smile on my face when I see my baskets being used. Because that's kind of when I'm making them, that's kind of what I envisage them going out in the world to do. I say, not just to sit in a glass case somewhere or be an art piece. They're meant to be part of people's lives, whatever they do with them. So that's good. Yeah.
And you were saying about growing the willows, so you grow a lot of your own willow, don't you?
Yeah, the whole process for me starts with the raw material, and I guess you're quite lucky, I think, looking back, actually, to have a background in forestry, because before I could make baskets, before I had any sort of skill set for making, I did have a bit of a skill set for growing trees. So that's been really nice to kind of dip into that side of it. There's always the option these days just to kind of buy your raw material in, buy commercial grown willow. But I think right from the start, I was keen to grow my own, and that's what I'm still doing 30 years on, really. I kind of got busier as a maker, and now I teach quite a lot as well. I don't think I've ever quite made a year 100% on my own willow. Probably about 90% of what I use is homegrown. But it might get to Christmas time, and I don't run out of willow, but you might run out of certain sizes, so maybe a big order will come in at Christmas for log baskets, and then I'll have the choice to say, ooh, I've not got any willow that size in. Then customers will have to wait a year till mine's ready again, or you kind of top up with a little bit of bought-in willow. So of course I do the latter. I've got a couple of colleagues up here now who grow willow for me. So 90% of it is homegrown here in Deanscales. The rest is brought in from 2 villages away, so it's as close to home as I can make it, but not, if I'm hand on heart, not all entirely grown by myself, but vast bulk of it is.
Yeah, it's kind of all about having integrity, but also being able to have balance, to be able to say, oh, well, yeah, this isn't 100% like ideally the way I want it. Being able to
it's kind of an aspiration, and I think it's important to be honest about it. So it's easy to say, oh yeah, it's all homegrown, but it's kind of not. And in the early days, I used to beat myself up about that a little bit, thinking, so next year you plant a bit more 8-foot willow to head that off at the pass. But of course, the following year, it wasn't a big order for log baskets that came in, it was for these. And you didn't have enough 4-foot willow, so it's like, duh. So you end up just chasing your own tail, getting quite stressed about it, when there's a very easy solution, which is to kind of do as much as you can yourself, and then have another port of call. And it's quite nice, and it supports other, local growers. It puts a bit of work out into the community. And there's only so many hours in the day. I think really I want to be a maker. I want to be making all the time. Not spending 6 months of my year growing all the willow to cover every eventuality. So you juggle these things. It's a balancing act, isn't it? But you never quite get 100% right. But it doesn't really matter that you don't. There's other ways of doing things.
That sounds, I'm just starting to dip my toes into that a bit with growing dye plants. I've made this dye garden this year.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a similar thing. Like, I'll never have enough to like cover what I need, but I feel like there's something about learning about the plants themselves and learning what might work here, what might not work here, and having like, I was at this bakery or at this like sourdough course, and the baker, they're very like into having local ingredients and stuff, and he always said like, even if you only use like 10% of like Irish grown flour, is going to taste so much better, like exponentially better. And that even if I can have just like a bit in what I'm doing, that will just make it so much better.
Yeah.
So because when you're foraging stuff, like, it's easy because it's everywhere, and it's mostly weeds and stuff. So it's in abundance. But with the dye garden, because it's all cultivated, it's a bit more like, constrained, like what you have of it. But it's an interesting process still to.
Yeah, and it's all a big learning curve as well, to be honest. I mean, the growing side, I now grow about 38 different varieties of willow, and they all have their different kind of needs and requirements, which just takes a little while to get the hang of that. And then we live in a time of changing climate as well. So from one season to the next, just when you think you've got the hang of what that willow needs, the world throws a funny structure of it, shifts on again. So you're just constantly responding to all of that, so you kind of grow what you can and you do what you can. And if you don't have enough, you find another way. It's all part of the game, really. Keeps you on your toes.
Oh, definitely. So I was wanting to ask you a wee bit about your studio, because we met because I, unbeknownst to me, booked this lovely holiday cottage. And I turned
Yes,
up,
yeah.
and opposite the holiday cottage was this beautiful studio workshop. Um, and I'm pretty sure you said, "Oh, you're welcome to come and like see where I work or whatever." So I definitely was very
Yeah.
interested to come and see. And I sensed that your studio was had a lovely atmosphere, I thought, and um, definitely it has like a lot of history, and you can feel that when you go in. And I know you did a massive
Mm.
renovation job on it, so I was just wondering, could you tell us a wee bit about that process and the history of your studio, and maybe show us around a wee bit?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll tell you a bit about it, and then I'll see if we can spin the iPad around and give you a little bit of a view in here. Yeah, well, we live in a small village in West Cumbria, Dinsdales, and the house we bought here 30 years ago uh, was in a bit of a state. It's an old Cumbrian farmstead, really. The oldest bit of the house, the bit you stayed in, which is now the holiday cottage. I think that was built in about 1650. And then the main bit of the house we live in was about 100 years later, so that's the modern add-on. And then my workshop across the road where I am now, I think is probably a little bit older still. We think about 1600, this building. Had been a cottage, a little squat, two-room cottage with a fireplace at both ends. But when we took it on, the roof had kind of collapsed, and it had just been used as a cow shed for a bit, and then as a storeroom, and then let go. And it came into our ownership. And we spent maybe 3 or 4 years just slowly restoring it, kind of putting it back to being a usable building. Yeah, a lot of materials we've used in here, either salvo or original to the building. I think it did have a slate roof, which we carefully took off. All the timbers in the roof had gone, so we redid the timbers and put the old slates back up on the roof. The floor was just beaten earth, so we got some salvo flags and flagged it out. But we kind of wanted to keep a lot of the feeling of the building. So the old lime plaster and little slitty windows in here are all part of its history. And I spend a lot of my kind of time in here. I spend more time in this building than I do in the house. So I kind of wanted it to feel kind of right, and a comfortable, inspirational space to work in. So it took us a lot longer than it probably should have done. But just finding the right materials and finding the right tradespeople and kind of coming up with the right ideas for how we wanted to do it. So we spent a lot of time going off on little holiday cottages and making lots of notes and just seeing things we really liked in other buildings and trying to bring a little bit of that back into this space. It's made a really lovely workspace. It's always felt a very happy space in here. And somebody on Instagram the other week had put up one of these little questions on Instagram about what your workplace means to you. And it just set me thinking that day while I was in here, what does a workspace mean? And I think the post I put back up was something along the lines of a workshop space is a space where you lose yourself, where you find yourself, and where you can be yourself. It's kind of all of those three things for me, really. I come in here and the rest of the world disappears. You kind of end up engrossed in this beautiful workspace, but you find something deep within yourself in that kind of space as well, where your creativity can come out. I think when you're working crash, you're not kind of pulling a button making plastic daffodils. You're kind of imparting a fair bit of yourself into what you make, and there's a lot of things got to be right for that process to kind of flow and to happen and to feel comfortable and to be able to do it consistently. So having the right environment to work in, I think, is very much, for me anyway, a big part of that. Very difficult to be inspired if you just sat in a concrete bunker. Or I find it very difficult. So you wouldn't kind of do it in the same way. But I sit here and I've got this lovely view out onto the fells. You know, so as soon as I look up from my work, I've got the outside world there flooding into this little space as well. But in the depths of winter, you know, I just cocoon myself in here, get the wood-fired stove going, Radio 4 on, you know, and I'm in heaven. Yeah.
Here's a view of part of one of my willow beds, kind of midway through a growing season, and if I just pan round, there's Willow HQ, that's Springley where we live, and then just panning round to the left, you just get a little glimpse of the workshop. There's our pond, and just coming round my commute to work in the morning. Here we are. Here's my workshop and showroom buildings. Let's go and see who's in. Oh, there's me in the reflection. Yeah, organised chaos in here. Tend to work in this room. A workbench at the back, various baskets underway, trusty wood burning stove down at the bottom there. Cupboard of all loveliness.
Yeah, because when I was working in the house, because there was the only windows I had were really tiny, and they were looking out to really ugly views, and I feel like it really inhibited my making a little bit. It felt a bit claustrophobic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because in our whole house, there's no view at all of anything apart from the street. So I felt really like, and being just on the street is very noisy as well. So I really felt like a place that I could like escape and just like have some green view that I could look at. So it's I notice a massive change, like working here from working in the house. It feels really different. It's a joy.
Yeah, and maybe it's having that dedicated space as well. You know, so the first few years I worked in the spare bedroom, and you're scratching around and then clearing your stuff away when visitors come, and trying to soak the willow in the bath, and then visitors come and just see this monstrous bundle of stinking willow in the bathroom, and it's difficult. I admire anybody who can kind of work in that way, because it needs a certain character to do that. I mean, I feel so blessed now. I've got, well, 3 rooms here, dedicated space, you know, a room to work in, a room to showcase my work, and I've got a kind of a messy lathe room at the other end now. And it's just dedicated workspace. You can mess it up, you can scruff it up, you can fill it with half-made things. You don't have to tidy it away at the end of every working day, and it makes such a difference, you know, as a craftsperson to have that messy space to play in. Yeah.
And you also have parties there, I'm pretty sure, and music, and you have friends around, so it has different uses.
Oh, well, it's too good to keep a nice space like this to yourself. And we're very blessed. We've got lots of musical friends, and I mean, there is electricity in here, but not much. And sometimes in the winter, I light this place up by candlelight. And to get your friends in here to come and play music, I always kind of get quite emotional, actually. And I just think of all the times in this building's past, you know, what's gone on in here and what's kind of imbibed into the walls and the plaster and the fabric of old buildings. Mm-hmm. And you like to think, you know, what you're doing with the building is kind of adding to that.
Yeah.
Just that history of usage, you know, and so it's such a lovely space. I think I'd feel selfish if I just kind of kept it to myself. It's a nice place to share and bring other people into, both for teaching and for parties and for music and just whatever we can make use of this space, really. Yeah. I have to kind of tell them that they do come and start putting beer glasses on my lovely workbench. So I do have my these rules, and they do tease me relentlessly about that. They'll be hovering with a beer glass on my bench, saying, "You're right, put it on you, Phil." I'm kind of going twitchy at the thought of it, but you have to let go of a little bit of that. It's a workshop, and stuff gets broken and damaged. So it needs to be me that does that, really. Yeah.
And so you did most of the renovations yourself, didn't you?
As much as we could, yeah. I mean, I'm very well. Both of us really kind of enjoy old buildings and ratching around trying to find stuff to work on, and I'm very happy with any of the woodworky aspects of that. And I've got a good friend who's a builder, and I guess partly to keep costs down, I've always kind of liked to labour when I've had people coming to work, and part of the deal has been, you come and do the work, but are you okay for me to labour for you? And I find in doing that, you just learn so much. So maybe next time you do a bit of that work, you can feel a bit more confident about doing yourself. So we've learned loads in doing both the farm and the cottage and this building up. And there's a little bit of me thinks if I had my time again, I would quite like to be in sort of building conservation. You get to kind of dabble with wood and stone and lime plaster and all these amazing materials, and then you get to kind of furnish a place as well. So, picking up old furniture and then textiles and getting some contemporary stuff to furnish the place with. So that's all great fun and a massive sidetrack to making a living as a basket maker. But these are the sort of avenues you end up chasing down, and it's all good stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
It kind of just opens up this amazing world of kind of working with other craftspeople and builders and learning stuff. Just learning stuff you have no idea about. Yeah.
It's
We've got a little visitor. Cass just popped her in. Yeah. It's her first podcast as well, I think.
Hello.
Yeah.
You should have brought your friend.
Yeah. So this.
Look.
Old Rufus. Yeah. Who's that? Yeah.
Oh, Billy. We kind of pulled it over the Bedlington Whippet dogs, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, you don't see many of them about, do you? And yeah, it's so lovely to. Well, for both the dogs, actually, I think. They used to have that lovely game, didn't they, on the village green, where Bitey Face, where they sort of run at full tilt and sort of nibble each other's faces at the same time. She's never done that with any other dog, really. No, they're having a whale of a time, weren't they? Yeah.
Oh, so cute.
Yeah.
I knew if I brought this out here, he'd see a cat and just go crazy.
She'd be the same. She's pretty good most of the time, but anything that moves too quickly, she's just like after it. Yeah. Cats, not birds. Birds she's not interested in, but anything with 4 legs and smaller than her, it's kind of fair game in Millie's world. And trouble is she's too fast as well, crikey. She doesn't hang about, but she starts to move. Yeah. But she's getting a bit more, perhaps a bit older and more sensible in her old age. She will kind of come in the workshop here with me now, which she never did as a pup. She was always like bouncing off the walls. But now she's coming on 6 years old now, so she'll just like curl up in the corner, and as long as I'm not whacking her with sticks while I'm making, she just kind of looks at me every now and again and says, "Well, what are you spending your days doing? Can we go for another walk?" But she spends quite a bit of time with me, which again is one of the unexpected bonuses of working for yourself and working from home. You get doggy time as well. So yeah, it's good, isn't it? Yeah.
So, do you, talking about dog walking and such things, do you have any daily or weekly or seasonal routines and rituals that are, well, just tell me what your day-to-day looks like, and then if you have any rituals that are essential to the process.
Both of those daily. I guess a normal day for me will kind of, I don't get up too early, like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And the first job will walk Millie, so we do a half-hour walk at the start of the day, just from the village. call it a sniffy walk. She likes to kind of read all the emails, sniff everything on the lanes, just a quick half-hour walk to set her straight, come home, let the chickens out, feed them. So everybody gets their breakfast and walks before I do. Take half a cup of tea, get breakfast on, and then I'm usually out here in the workshop. Like if it's after 9 o'clock, I'll be feeling a little bit guilty, so I'm usually in here before 9. Usually light the stove, that's the first job. Put the radio on is the second job. Fish the wet willow out of the tank is the third job. Sit yourself down, quick tickle and sharpen of me toolkit, just takes 5 minutes, and then order book comes out, and just kind of get piled into a day's work really. I started off with a big pile of wet willow on my right hand side, and all of that usually disappears during the day and hopefully turns into something.
You had your willow by your
I had
side.
the willow by my side, and yeah, and during the course of the day, that pile of wet willow will hopefully get converted into useful product. And along the way, I will kind of take coffee breaks and lunch break, and usually during the day, I'll get a kind of couple of visitors most days. It's very rare that nobody will pop by, but it'll either be somebody coming to collect something they've ordered, or possibly just coming to have a look at what I've got and put an order. Yeah, so there'll be. I don't have any sort of signs up here. I don't really encourage random footfall. I kind of want to get on and do stuff, but yeah, there will be many days go past when somebody doesn't call in to pick something up. And yeah, usually by 4 or 5 o'clock, I'm kind of knocking off. I'll work late in here if sometimes the willow's just working beautifully, and if it's sat there and there's something good on the radio and I'm in the mood, then you just kind of carry on until the willow's used up. And vice versa, other days, if you kind of get through it and it's a nice sunny day out there and the veg garden is calling to me. Crikey, I work for myself and it still seems funny doing that, but just down tools at 3 o'clock and go and plant the spuds or walk up the fells. You're kind of allowed to when you work for yourself. All this kind of stuff gets done. Yeah. It's lovely having that freedom to. And I'm not the most disciplined person in the world, really, to work a set number of hours. I mean, that all seems a little bit weird, really. I kind of, do some crazy long days and some slightly skivey short ones, if I'm honest.
Skivey short days.
Stuff gets done during the week. Yeah. Well, do you? I remember when I had a proper job, and this time of year, maybe May or something, and you'd be in the office waiting for the weekend to come round so you could like plant the allotment. And then the weekend would come round and the weather would be foul, and you think, and that would happen a couple of weekends on the trot, and then the moment's gone. Yeah. It always was such a massive frustration. So it still puts a massive smile on my face now when you get those nice days in spring. And say, there's nothing in my life is urgent particularly. No emergency baskets. So why not just push the work aside for half a day and kind of do things when the moment's right? And that just seems such a lovely and a natural thing to be able to do, and gives me great joy when you can kind of do that. You don't ask anybody's permission, or that sort of the flexiness of your work is a big bonus of it. So that's kind of a daily schedule, and I guess seasonally, I have a cycle to my year. It's January and February, when the willow's dormant, so I don't get many baskets made. That early part of the year, to get all my willow cut and graded and bundled and into storage, probably takes about 6 weeks. So there's that part of my year that I can't avoid or postpone. If I don't do that, I don't have material to work with for the rest of the year. So I have that kind of linchpin in the year, really, when the willow comes in. And then the willow I cut in January, it's usually ready to use by about Easter. So from Easter onwards, I'm just kind of making like crazy, right through till Christmas and beyond. And then it's back to another crop of willow. It only takes a year for it to grow. So I've got this lovely annual cycle that kind of marks my year out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, chasing the twigs, really. Yeah, yeah.
And willow, do you have to replant it every year, or do you just cut it down and it grows again?
No, it's thankfully, it's a big job planting a willow bed, but you do it once, and then you just plant little sets, as they're called, plant them once, and then off those sets you get maybe 2 or 3 usable rods the first year. You harvest those in January, and then the whole thing grows again. But the second year you might get 6 or 7. You harvest those the next year, and the next year you might get 10 or 12. So for the first like 5 or 10 years, you just get this lovely, sustainable annual harvest from the original pegs. And that rumbles on for 20 or 30 years, the lifespan of a willow bed. So in terms of its sustainability, it's amazing, really. You cut it to within an inch of its life every year. I think you've decimated it. But willow being willow, come the first week of May, it just bounces back into growth again. I'll take some pictures out there tomorrow. It's only started growing 8 weeks ago, and already it's as tall as me, so it grows incredibly quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So is there any very local or specific techniques to Cumbria or the Lakes or Dean scales that you've come across, or that you could tell us about?
Yeah, there's a very traditional Cumbrian basket called a swill, an oak swill, that doesn't have any willow in it at all. It's made from coppice hazel and cleft oak, which is a very, very, very Cumbrian basket, which I do make. And then, I guess a whole raft of kind of willow baskets that, wherever you go in the UK, you've got these sort of regional variations of kind of baskets and what they were used for. And I'm often sort of dipping into sort of museum collections and historic baskets, just for inspiration, really. And then if I can find a modern day use for a basket that's almost half disappeared off the agenda, it's kind of really nice to bring them back and give them a new lease of life. And I tend to do that wherever I go. We were from the Shetlands last month, just sort of tracking down some historic Shetland baskets and just seeing which ones maybe can be reworked or just looked at, because people are just incredibly inventive on how they've used local material. I'm using local material through choice now, but I guess historically everybody's done that through necessity. And what it's meant is basket makers historically have just been incredibly inventive for how they've used materials. We were in Scandinavia a couple of years ago, and the further north you go, you get out of the range of willow. It doesn't grow very well as you head further north, but there they make their baskets out of birch bark. Absolutely beautiful creations, but it's another complete skill set in terms of harvesting the material and how you process it and how you weave with a leathery, barky material. But some beautiful baskets over there. Then come back to Cumbria, and Cumbria is full of silver birch. It's a very common tree here, and it's almost treated as a weed. Nobody really utilises it. So once you've got your basket eyes on, you just start seeing material, thinking, if it's here, and you can get the skill set from somewhere else to maybe put the two together and just start kind of using what's around you in a creative and innovative way. It's all very exciting, just for a basket maker anyway. Yeah, but not particularly learning anything radically new. For me, it's kind of delving into this amazing back catalogue of craft skills, which some of them still hanging on, some of them disappeared, but all kind of accessible if you're prepared to experiment a bit and put a little bit of time into it. I'll grab one out. I'll show you what I made. You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little Scandinavian birch pot with a little wooden lid. and all stitched up the side with a bit of spruce root, wooden base, top and bottom. Yeah, but made out of Cumbrian silver birch.
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
So, last kind of woody question. Was there anything in particular that draws you to wood as a material?
Oh, that's kind of a hard question. What would it be? I don't know. I guess that's something that's been there since I've been a kid, really. You know, I was looking back to my childhood. Maybe every kid does this, but just forever, just kind of making things out of sticks and bringing sticks home and collecting driftwood. And just bringing stuff home from the woods, really, and piling it up and not really knowing what to do with it or how to do things with it, but just being drawn. Maybe you're the same, a natural material just kind of gets under your skin a bit, and maybe it's the smell of it, the feel of it, the accessibility of it. You know, it just does something to all of your senses, really. And that's kind of hung on with me now. You know, I don't get too excited about going into B&Q and hanging around the timber shelves. There's something about it being foraged and gleaned and gathered from this parish in which I live. You know, and either grown by me or maybe an oak tree that gets delivered by a storm and comes down in the village. I kind of feel drawn to doing something with it and finding out how to, if I don't know how to do something with it, kind of finding out. So it's just that draw of a tantalising, beautiful, natural material that you almost don't want to see kind of go to waste.
Yes.
And then there's this lovely adventure you can go on to learn the skill set and just experiment and find out how that process actually works. That's all dead exciting. You know, it's not so much the end product that excites me. You know, these are quite nice, but that's finished now. It's getting on with the next one and the next.
Yeah. There's something about the
next bit.
Process.
The process, yeah. It's kind of hard to put your finger on, isn't it? You know, I never sort of rule anything out, but I've got a friend who runs a fab lab, and I went along to that a few years ago. So he said to me, well, you could come down and do a lot of what you do on laser cutters and using some kind of fairly high-tech equipment. And I thought, well, I am a bit of a Luddite, you know, with my knife and my secateurs and my hand tools. So I went and had a go. And to be honest, after a week, I kind of nearly went demented because the process is just very, very different. It was all very hands-off.
Yeah.
You spent 6 hours writing a vectorized program with a laser cutter to cut your bark into pieces.
Yeah.
But the actual hands-on wasn't there. And it was really cathartic for me that, yeah, it's not about the making, it's not what you end up with. It's kind of getting your hands and your senses on the material very directly, whatever that may be, almost whatever woody material it might be on whatever process, but there's just something about that directness of hand tools, handling stuff, foraging material. Yeah, it's all a bit weird, really. Yeah.
Oh, it's not weird at all. I totally get
it. Yeah. What is it, mate? I know you do news over these things, don't you? And I guess maybe it's not weird. You know, as human beings, we're probably hardwired to do all this sort of stuff, you know, to forage and glean and make and experiment. It's probably hardwired into us as a species. It's what we've done for the last 2 million years, isn't it? So being able to kind of carry on and do a lot of that now is probably why you find this sense of self and satisfaction, because you're touching quite deep base, I think, with what it is to be human. And I think if you remove people from doing that, it's no wonder they get a bit stressed and a bit odd and a bit disconnected, because it's probably what we're all meant to be doing. It's kind of more of this connection with the earth and what's around you and doing it sensitively. It's all part of being human, I think. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
So, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Okay. Would you like to tell us?
Sorry.
So, very, I feel like we're into the realm of philosophy. It's
Yeah. Well, I guess what made me think about it, I mean, I get a lot of people teach quite a bit, and you often kind of end up talking about this with students and people who come here from all sorts of different backgrounds and career paths, and it is quite interesting to talk about, actually, you know, the actual deeper side of craft and what it does for people in terms of kind of mental health and well-being and say sense of place in the world. It always reinforces to me that I'm kind of so lucky doing all of this, because it kind of grounds you. You know, you're kind of you're doing something a little bit weird, but it's also very normalising as well, and helps you make sense of the world in a crazy, you know, we live in this crazy planet, don't we, with all sorts of things going on. But this, for me, is very grounding and very centering.
Yeah.
In this peculiar little way, and why should just fiddling around with wet sticks kind of do that to you, really? But it's interesting to explore.
Yeah.
And just that meditative. We often talk about other crafts as well. You know, just that handling of natural material and repeat process. Because nothing I do is difficult. I'm always saying this to people. You just kind of learn a few basic moves, and then you repeat them a lot. And you repeat them that often, you get quite good at doing it. It's not like rocket science we're doing, but it's just this very lovely meditative process of doing repeat work with the natural material. It does nice things to your brainwaves.
Yeah. I definitely find if I'm dyeing yarn, but only just producing and not stopping to knit with it, I kind of lose the love of it, because there's something to be said about coming full circle, about like meeting the sheep and then like getting the yarn spun and like then you're dyeing it with these things that you foraged, but to then just stop and not actually make anything, like not to make it come. It feels a little bit, I don't like that feeling, so I have to always try and give myself a bit of time to like complete the circle, so to speak.
Yeah. No, and I think if you're a maker, you need to do that. I've had a spell a few years ago. I took on a lot of teaching, which I really liked doing. But it was about 3 or 4 months went past when I was either teaching or preparing to teach or getting materials together, and the making side of it kind of fell off the rails a bit, and it had quite a profound effect on me. It makes you realise actually I need to have, not necessarily every day, but I need to have time in here, probably alone, making for a kind of fairly significant part of my existence, and then fit other things in around that. But if you end up throwing out the baby with the bathwater, it's like, ooh, and it's easy to do. You get drawn into doing other things, and but I kind of make a conscious effort these days to build in workshop time as a core thing, rather than letting it get squeezed out by lots of other stuff. And COVID was great for that, actually. I had a very reflective time through COVID. You know, it's quite a difficult time in some ways because a lot of things kind of closed down, kind of worky wise, but it did mean I went back to being a basket maker.
So if someone would like to buy one of your baskets, how can they do it?
That's a good question. They can. Probably the easiest way to kind of have a look at me and what I do and to get in touch with these days is kind of via Instagram. I'm all over Instagram. Phil Bradley Basket. But I do work through batches. I like doing batch work. So if I've kind of got an excess of material, I do post that up. There's like little sales events up on Instagram as well. I don't sell through a website these days. That was kind of getting a little bit stressy, but through Instagram, if people want to make contact or take a look at what I'm up to, that might be the best way to do it.
Yeah, I'll put all the details in the description box so you can go and follow Phil and buy a basket if you'd like to.
Brilliant. Yes, thank you very much.
So have I asked this already? Would you like to tell us a little bit about your trip to Shetland? Any interesting artifacts that you found there? And
Shetland, yeah, we've just come back from 4 weeks in the van, touring around Shetland. Yeah, great trip, partly holiday, but as often happens, a basket maker goes on holiday, and yeah, all these people you sort of converse with on Instagram kind of come out of the woodwork. So I think within a couple of days of being there, a couple of lovely posts just saying, "Oh, if you're up in Shetland, come and pay a visit." So yeah, a busman's holiday in some ways, but we caught up with some lovely woolly people on Shetland. And also a couple of really nice baskety people as well. A lovely woman from Fair Isle called Eve Unson, who's doing a lot of work to breathe some life back into these lovely Shetland chairs with the oak straw woven back, very traditional to that part of the world. There's not much history of trees or willow on Shetland, but a great tradition of working with wood, and largely working with driftwood and what the sea delivers, which was quite an interesting concept.
yeah.
So Eve was saying she was born on Fair Isle, and she said it's just part of your culture. Twice a day at low tide, you just go scavenging, and whatever the sea throws up is usually pretty quickly pounced upon. It doesn't hang around for very long. So it might be driftwood, or it might be ship's cargoes that get washed up. And that is the making tradition, not to grow trees, but to forage them off the beach. And some beautiful furniture and chairs and wooden items made in the Shetlands from driftwood. So I did a little bit of exploring of that while we were there, and brought some driftwood back and some pieces that are at the forefront of my mind, to just incorporating found material rather than grown material. Yeah. So no, it was a good trip. Yeah, and a lot of I was saying on Shetland, I think they feel a much closer affinity to Scandinavia than to Scotland, and they're closer. Bergen's a day's sail from the Shetlands, closer than mainland Scotland is. So a lot of the culture and traditions are kind of Norwegian in their history. So we spent a few days in Shetland Museum looking at some of the artifacts in there, which again, I'm not sure what's going to come of it yet, but just lots of ideas just bubbling away from that trip that will probably emerge over the next few months as the ideas sort of settle and disseminate in my little bear brain. Yeah. But I like that about holidays. Holidays, it's a break from work, but it's also, I find, I don't know about you, but when I'm working, you can just get engrossed in the daily rituals of making a living from doing this, and there isn't always a lot of time for the creative thinking. So to actually go away, after about 3 days being away, a different bit of your brain kind of opens up again. It's just more receptive to materials and new ideas, and having time to talk to people, and just get this lovely mixing pot of ideas going again. When there's space in your brain free of all the other day-to-day stuff. So I do like holidays in that respect. You come back full of ideas again, and just new things to try, and other avenues to explore. Like I've got time to be doing that, but it's all part of the fun. You're not excited about what you're doing and got some ideas, more ideas than you've got time to do them. I quite like that. There's always things to be playing with and exploring.
I've definitely noticed that about taking time off if you go away somewhere. It's definitely a different part of your brain starts to work, and I've noticed, like, I don't mean to, and it always happens if I'm like cycling. My brain starts to solve problems that I couldn't figure out at home and stuff like that. So, yep, I definitely could do with a few more holidays, I think. Maybe
I
one.
know, get them booked in, really. Yeah, I need a Cumbria visit, actually. It's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah.
No, I'd love to come back.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll have to try and make that happen.
Yeah, well, anytime. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think that's everything maybe for this episode. So unless you've anything you'd like to add or anything.
And thanks very much for the opportunity to gabble on for a wee while. That's yeah, always good talking to you, and yeah, that's been fun.
Thanks so much for joining myself and Phil today. I will leave all links to where you can find them in the description. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. I thought there was a lot of very interesting topics covered, so really hope you enjoyed that, and until next time, bye.